Hello everybody. So, you just booted up Don't Starve Together for the first or 100th time and bam, you're face to face with this screen, the character selection. So many choices, so many different playstyles to choose from. The choice can seem overwhelming at times. So today, I'm gonna help you pick what character you could play as if you're struggling to land on one, by briefly going over what I think each character's biggest strength and weakness may be, and what to expect when playing them. This video is not a tutorial or a full overview of every character in the game, and more so focus on quirks to expect if you decide to start playing them. If you do want a video where I do that though, then let me know down below. We'll start with the non-DLC characters first, but the time codes are on screen right now in case you want to skip ahead a little bit. But before we get in, your main should be the character that's most important to you. Factor in not only their mechanical and gameplay aspects we'll be going over shortly, but also their character, their quotes, and even their skins. Pick a main that feels right to you and you alone. Not what other people force you to play. Or don't pick a main at all and play whoever you want, whenever you want, you multi-fandom enjoyer you. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to picking a main, no matter what other people may say. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's get stuck in. First up, Wilson. Wilson is the Wilson of this game. He's the guy you should probably play as when starting out, but don't sell him short because of that. Whilst on the surface he may seem like a plain Jane generic character, which honestly he kind of is, he does offer some unique strengths. With his beard granting massive insulation and access to beard hair for meat effigies, versatile transmutation abilities, and even torture buffs, Wilson's strength is simply that he has no weaknesses. In exchange for a character with average stats and mildly useful abilities, you get a character that can do oddly specific things really well, at the cost of not doing something really poorly. He's good if you want to be slightly versatile with no downsides. Next up you have Willow. This lady has her super durable lighter and shadow killing teddy bear. Spec into her insight tree and you can even cast a range of pyrokinetic spells and buff your burning to be even stronger. This all adds together to make Willow's strength her ability to nullify entire aspects of the game. The lighter makes it nigh on impossible for you to die to Charlie. Bernie makes it so you don't need to bother fighting shadows yourself. Her fire immunity and overheating protection are a given, and her fire damage makes most enemies panic and not even attack back. With Willow, you can find comfort in parts of the game that usually offer resistance. Her weaknesses to all of this is that while fire is beneficial for you, in a group setting, lighting enemies on fire will make nearby allies also take damage from burning. Unless you got Wigfred with her fireproof song active. This makes Willow one of the few selfish characters in some aspects, so keep that in mind if you plan on playing her with friends. Be considerate of who you light on fire. If you light a boss on fire, it might do a bit of damage over time, but it might also damage your allies over time. After that, we got Wendy. Oh boy. Obvious strengths of Wendy is that she's just really darn strong. She may deal less damage physically herself, but when combined with her area damaging, enemy weakening immortal ghost sister, you have a character with next to no downsides. Abigail can kill things safely like huge groups of spiders or even single large HP enemies when you spec into her insight tree, making Wendy herself just a strong pick overall. And that's not even considering her reduced sanity drain and massive utility her insight tree offers with gravestone perks, magical potion imbuing garlands, and even the ability to haunt things. There's honestly no weakness for this character. The only weakness I can offer you is that maybe it'll make the game too easy for you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if a character is strong or weak, all that matters is if you find them fun. And summoner characters are pretty fun, especially in a tense game like this one. But speaking of strong characters, we got Wolfgang. A big, strong, burly bloke who can deal double damage, harvest resources twice as fast, or even instantly rarely, and who is pretty tough to put down. His strength is obviously his strength. This character is powerful in not only combat, of which he's one of the best at, but also harvesting materials. He, much like Wendy, makes the game trivial in many ways. The downside he has of a tiny bit more sanity drain and a little bit of hunger loss when working out never really come into factor, so everything I said for Wendy can also apply to this big guy. But he does have one weakness, and that is that his insight tree is the worst. Oh my gosh, it's not like the perks are weak or bad, it's just that they're boring. They're all fluff and filler, compared to what other characters have with differing gameplay styles available in their insight tree. Wolfgang has 5 perks that buff his planar damage slightly. He's got no depth is what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, if you want a big, dumb, strong guy, then look no further. Here you go. Let's step away from the stupidly strong characters now and look at WX78. I fear this character will get an insight tree very soon, so everything I'm saying is as valid of whenever this video was posted. Anyway, WX is all about building your own character, plugging in all sorts of circuits to do all sorts of things. More health, sanity, illumination, speed, you got it. And that is WX's strength. They can essentially be built to be exactly the problem you want them to overcome. Don't like dealing with darkness? Use several of the illumination circuits. Hate dealing with overheating or freezing? Use a temperature circuit. Much like Willow is able to ignore certain aspects of the game, WX runs with that philosophy, instead giving you the choice of what you want to work around. Probably the most versatile character in the game. However, that is also their weakness. Not the aggressive weakness to water, though I will say for new players that is a bit of a hurdle you will have to learn to overcome. But whilst they can potentially do a lot of things, they lack the ability to do any one thing particularly well. Unless that one thing is to be versatile and completely nullify summer and winter. A bit of a jack-of-all-trades situation. Give them a go and see if they can be made into what you want them to be. Wickerbottom time, another pre-insight tree character. This old girl is super duper handy. Her books allow her to change and manipulate the world in ways no other characters can. Except for one. From making tentacles easier to renew, changing the weather, and even shifting the lunar cycle. All at the cost of not being able to sleep and having slightly less HP and pickier food. Wickerbottom's strength lies in the fact that she functions as a support character who helps both herself and her allies out by bending the world to her will, making her great at making bad situations great, and even farming lots and lots of resources as she pleases, even stuff such as tentacles. Her weakness though is that she herself has little to no power. The books she can make are supremely helpful. However, without her books, she is just a weaker Wilson who cannot sleep. I bring this up because there exists one other character who can read all of her books just fine and does a decent job at making her obsolete. For mains of that character, Wickerbottom seems like a prime swap on and swap off kind of girl, especially since the bookcases do renew the durability of the books without her, albeit slower. I really hope her insight tree fixes this part of her, because when that happens, we're gonna have a real powerhouse on our hands. She already is powerful, if you don't care about swapping, however. Next up is Woody, a crazy lumberjack with an infinite durability axe, wereforms dedicated to harvesting, exploration and combat, and an insight tree with a couple of nifty little crafts. Woody is a comfortable character to play. He's great at harvesting, great at exploring, and has a very cheap access to a combat form that saves you having to farm up for weapons, armor, or even healing items if you take insight perks. His biggest strength is that he's just simply comfortable to play as. Nothing seems too difficult or even too different when playing as him. But his weakness isn't the fact you turn into a crazy wereform every full moon, since you can just disable it with a single perk, or indulge and go crazy every full moon, but is instead how once you're much later into a playthrough, his strengths kinda fall off a little bit. The luxury of his wereforms never goes away, don't get me wrong, but in a later world, you'll often benefit from fighting outside of your moose form for access to better gear, and the goose form drops off in utility once you have the entire map mapped out, or even access to a beefalo. Despite that, he's still really strong in pretty much every phase of the game, especially if you don't care to get armor or tame a beefalo, but the early game is where Woody shines the best. Time for old Maxwell. A character I'd probably never recommend to new players unless you really like the old guy. His kit is iconic. a book with access to minions to help resource for you, fight alongside you, and some traps to snare and confuse enemies, as well as insanely high sanity regen and a pocket dimension where you can store all of your ill-gotten gains. And also an immunity to the sanity drain from evil equipment, which is super useful later on. Plenty of powerful perks for this guy, but his biggest strength to me is how safe you can play as him. You don't gotta worry about sanity management due to his massive passive gain, and most combat encounters can be dealt with by either rooting or fearing anything and just letting your goons take care of it as you cheer them on from a safe distance. This safety net exists because of his biggest weakness. His health is stupidly low. Only 75 hit points. A raw hit when you're unarmoured means you're a goner. Even strong enough hits when you are armoured and you're toast too. This makes Maxwell more suited to advanced players who have a full understanding of how fighting works, because one mistake with this guy could end your run right away. Use the shadow abilities you're given to their fullest potential and you have one of the strongest characters in the game, even without an insight tree. Oh my god, can I not wait for that one. But now we have Wes. A character that only exists as a joke for people who think the game is too easy, and for people who think he's kinda cute. As a new player, only play as him if you want to show off to your friends and make silly balloons. As a veteran player, you could get away with playing him for fun. His early game is super strong with his speedy balloon and his, well, speedy balloon that can also function as a flare, but that's about it. Weak in every other facet, low stats, low damage, low harvesting, but he is kinda silly and cute, I'm not gonna lie. Only play him if you really like him. But Wigfred on the other hand is an absolute treat to play as. You have access to easy to obtain helmets and weapons that you could also share with your friends, as well as probably the best sustain in the game with life leech on your attacks and battle songs to buff your allies. A prime combat support character who wants to get in the rough of it while making sure your friends ain't left behind. Being a proactive support character is Wigfred's best feature. Typical supports in other games rarely have a chance to back up themselves, but Wigfred, she also lets you carry yourself solo if you want. A real leader character to pick, like a paladin or a cleric. But her downside? Having to only eat meat and nothing but meat? It's not much of a downside in of itself, but it forces the player into a very proactive playstyle, since meat, especially early game, isn't as easy to renew as veggies, meaning until you have a decent source of leafy meat and other farmables, means you really gotta be on top of actually going around and getting meat and biting stuff way more so than other characters. Whilst this playstyle is very fun, it can be a bit demanding and is not something I would recommend for absolute new players to the game, despite how easy she may seem to more intermediate players. This style of gameplay also clashes with those who prefer to take the game at a slower pace, like myself. If that's not you, however, then you might find her engaging and supporting style a dream come true. Next up, we got a fan favourite, Weber, my old main, and yet again another pre-insight pick. This kid, with their ability to tame all sorts of spiders, grow his own silky beard, and even other nifty things like sleeping in spider dens, makes him a fun all-arounder who can have spiders fight things for him, most of the time. His biggest strength is that he can help you have a near infinite access to silk, meat, and spider glands thanks to infighting and casualties. The ability to make food a non-issue in a game titled Do Not Starve Together, as well as the super versatility of Silk, turns Weber into a weird kind of support character who never has to worry about food, as well as the freedom to make as many silk crafts as he wants, such as sanity restoring top hats, bug nets, fishing rods, trawl nets, anything. All of that is also not counting the immortality you can achieve with nurse spiders when playing as Weber. But his downsides are all of his other spiders. As fun as they are to swarm enemies with, their utility in combat leaves a lot to be desired when compared to other certain minion-based characters. Their low HP can be remedied with armor, cave spiders and the aforementioned nurse spiders, but these guys will get utterly demolished against any boss or enemy that deals big area damage, which is more often than not, most of them. But for the bosses that don't do area damage and rely on single target attacks, then Weber's army is absolutely going to demolish them. but just make sure they don't eat any of the drops. Right now, Weber is just fine, but I expect his character to become really interesting when their insight tree drops. Time for Wally, the second last of the characters who lack insight trees. Got a feeling he's getting one soon though, mark my words. This guy is your premier support. Having one of them on your team will always make a noticeable impact. With your buffing, seasoning and incredibly powerful dishes, Wally's greatest strength is all of this. He gives the characters that aren't so good at harvesting the ability to become even better at harvesting, gives the characters that do little damage the ability to do more damage, and gives the characters that do more damage the ability to do stupidly more damage. His ability is to push every character in the game up a level thanks to his dishes and seasonings. But that is sadly also his downside. You see, Wally himself gets no additional benefit when he buffs himself by eating his special food, and since without his food he is just a hungrier Wilson, more often than not, the best person that benefits from Wally is never him. A very altruistic cause and one honestly very befitting his character. But when compared to other support characters in the game, you don't feel as powerful on your own two legs. Unless you play solo, then who cares, because you're the star of your own show. Oh, but also his need to eat varieties of food might be taxing on newer players, but it's also a great way to learn, and it's one of the best negatives in the entire game in my opinion. Time for DST characters now with Winona. Gosh, what can't this girl do? You can turn your base into an illuminated, auto-sorting network of teleporters and windbots, you can make catapults to mulch down hordes of enemies or even bosses, and even spec into the shadows a little bit and gain access to a fast travel network of wormholes, bridge over gaps, and even literal immortality from death and the dark. Winona is packed full of ways to play her. You'd have a hard time finding something she's not got covered. Her biggest strength is that with a little bit of prep, you can trivialise so much of the game. Fast travel between islands, farm bosses AFK, keep the base clean, the best and pretty much only reliable method of automation there is in this game. The weakness of all of that though is getting to that point takes a long while. Catapults are notoriously expensive when it comes to rocks, and getting use out of her shadow perks relies a lot on good world RNG and finding the best base spot due to the wormhole perks and nightmare fuel milking from statues. So depending on what you want to do as Winona, you'll be faced with all sorts of hurdles to overcome first, and that might include stealing all of the rocks from your friends. I'm sure they won't mind. The last of the 3 characters for this video, we have Walter. This kid has a whole super perks that make him not fall into one archetype, but rather a thematic one with the whole Boy Scout aesthetic. You got a dog for storage who can turn into the fastest mount in the game, protection from sanity drain with easy ways to get it back, an absolute feast of perks that give you all sorts of nifty benefits and boons, and of course, a slingshot that introduces a completely unique method of combat to the game no other survivor can capitalise on, with ranged combat. There's just so much here that the best part of Walter is just how different he feels to all of the other characters. So many different toys and a massively overhauled fighting style can make you feel like you're playing an entirely different game at times, and is a big reason why he's quickly becoming one of my favourite characters ever since he got his Insight Tree update. But if none of that appeals to you, that's also his weakness. On top of the massive sanity loss from being injured and below average stats early game, Walter can sometimes feel a bit too different in gameplay when compared to other characters, especially if you rely on his ranged combat too much. Doubly so if you play him solo, as the ranged fighting style becomes way more risky when you're the only target for enemies. But if you're looking for someone different than all the others, I cannot recommend anyone else as much as Walter for that role. Now it's time we look at the paid characters. The next 4 characters we'll be looking at will not be unlocked by default, and will require you to either pay for one of the several bundles that include the character, or weave them with spools that you can get from unraveling skin drops. Might take a while, but you can totally get them for free. Let's start with Wormwood, a character from Hamlet, and one you'll also own in DST if you own Hamlet for single player. So good old Wormwood. A plant fella who is an absolute powerhouse at farming with quick tending, planting, and a bunch of insight perks that allow you to facilitate the farming of other things such as mushrooms and even leafy meat. Also perks that let you make a potion to make people poop to death. On top of perks that buff his already called Bramble Armor, Bramble Traps, and even let you turn into a pseudo summoner. And you also got his blooming stage, but oh my gosh, I'm getting carried away. He's got a lot, basically. This all adds together to make one of the best supports in the game, with the biggest strength to me being his farming prowess. If you ever have a Wormwood in your game, you'll know exactly how much food one of these guys can pump out once they get their farms going. Everyone on a server will love you for life if you play as him, especially Wallys and Warts. But you do also have access to the aforementioned bramble armor and traps, which give you some power in combat, so you're not stuck to being a farm bot for the server. Though saying all of that, one of his biggest weaknesses is that he's not the most reliable in combat, and his kit kinda contradicts itself. By that I mean, his main downside is that he cannot heal from food, as well as the whole sanity loss from killing plants, but that can easily be resolved by planting a tree. Which means that all of the crops you'll be growing that normally restore a bunch of health, like tomatoes and potatoes, will restore absolutely nothing for you. Meaning if you want to sustain in combat, you'll either need to use the fertilizer healing items, which slowly heal over time, or regular healing items which require their own methods to be farmed, like bees or spiders. It's a selfless character to play in all honesty. You gain access to the best healing food source in the entire game, but can never benefit from it yourself. But once you do get a decent source of healing to overcome this issue, Wormwood is an absolutely fantastic character. If only there was a character that could benefit from healing themselves as much as others. So let's talk about Wartox. Yeah, the biggest takeaway from this guy is that he is the healer of the game. Every enemy will drop souls, which you can then use to either heal yourself and your team, fill your belly, or use to teleport all over the map. And with an insight tree that lets you spec into a more supportive role or a damaging role, it's easy to see how Wartox is the gold standard support in the game as his biggest strength. You'll be the sole, no pun intended, reason an entire server will never have to deal with healing items. But as well as that, your teleportation means you can be anywhere at once, extending your support skills from just healing, and instead letting you support by having near global map coverage. Need a bunch of wood? Hop on over to the lunar island and grab some glass axes for everyone. Need ruins gear? Just teleport to and from the pseudoscience station. A boss fight going bad? Teleport back to base mid-fight, grab more gear, and then teleport back. It's crazy just how potent this guy is, even without looking at his soul attacking perks. The downside to all of this isn't the fact you'll get less benefit from eating food, since souls are easier to get and nourish way more, plus take the naughty perks and not lose sanity from it. But is instead how, this is a very silly downside, he makes every other character feel slow as heck. That's all I can think of, honestly. I played Wartox for like a couple of months and this is what I came up with. Play Wartox for a playthrough and then pick someone else with no fast method to travel and the game will feel 10 times slower. Not an issue at all if you only ever play Wartox, but man, if you're a variety guy like me, then it hurts. Oh, and having to farm souls every few days can be a bit tedious, with the constant back and forth between bee biomes. So yeah, at the end of the day, Wartox is really strong. Can't recommend him enough. Time for old Wanda. Do you get it? Because she's the clock woman. She's the last of the characters we'll be looking at today who has no insight, so her kit is rather lacking compared to others. Now the best way to describe Wanda is another fighter style character, like Wolfgang and Wigfred in some weird roundabout way. Since her health is completely replaced by time, any healing items won't work on her, meaning you gotta use your watches to heal, giving you a reliable way to restore HP on demand with a cooldown. But her biggest strength comes from what happens if you let her get old. The older you get, the more damage you'll deal with magic based weapons in exchange for dealing less damage with non-magic weapons, and the best magic weapon out there is her alarming clock. A whip watch that can deal massive damage with extended range and can be refilled with nightmare fuel. You can use this watch when young too for decent damage, but you'll get massive numbers if you're so much closer to dying. This makes her the prime glass cannon character for those who want to play her like that. If not, then you have a cool character who can easily heal and make her own network of teleports with her teleporting watches. You can play her as just a regular old character with better healing and transportation abilities, foregoing all of the glass cannon warrior fighting if it's more your speed. It's how I play her. Her weakness though is something I mentioned in a video before, and it's how if you want to make decent use out of her watches, it's a lot of busy work in your inventory. You'll always be carrying an ageless watch or free, a backstep watch for dodging, maybe a backtrek watch to go home, your alarming clock and nightmare fuel, and possibly one of her reviving watches if you're playing with friends. It's a lot of clutter, making her inventory feel tighter than others. Honestly, Winona has that issue as well, but I forgot to mention it in that part. Just wait until Wanda gets her inside tree though, and she'll get like a watch bag. I'm calling it right now. At last, but totally not least, you have my old girl Wart. Where do I even begin with her? I could say her strength is that she is the literal best character in the game, with her massive hunger gain from veggies, which makes her veggie only diet downside completely pointless, increased stats from having a Merm King alive, or even how Merms trivialise the entire game for you. Once you put in the lengthy effort to get your kingdom built up with Merm houses, you'll have the best resource gatherers and combat minions in the entire game. These Merms, especially with perks, can single-handedly take out entire bosses for you with little to no input. So you know what? Maybe it would make me biased, but Wart's strength is that she snowballs the hardest into the mid to late game when compared to other characters. She's utterly bonkers, and that is not even me talking about her ability to have wetness immunity, or the ability to not drown, or all of her weird mosquito perks. She's just, perhaps, too bonkers. As her being so stupidly strong, well, more importantly her Merms being too stupidly strong, might take the challenge away from the game for you. One time I was playing with my friends and we went to fight the Nightmare Werepig and prepped over the course of several days, discussing strategies and getting all the equipment we'll need for the fight. I brought 10 Merms with me, fully expecting them to die right away as other minions would, but they soloed the entire boss for us. It was awesome to see them do that, but it kinda took away the battle from us. We prepared for so long and all that happened was that. This is Wart's downside, funnily enough. Her trivialization of the game can really make you and your friends feel like you've got little actual impact anymore. But maybe, just maybe, you can still play Wart without using her overpowered Merm guards, and instead only using regular Merms for work, and specking into a Wart who has a bunch of wetness perks and mosquito skills. Maybe I'll do that one day. If you want the most overpowered character in the game, after a week of prep time, then Wart is your girl. Just make sure to enjoy her in moderation, because she might make the game a bit too easy, and that takes away from it a little bit in my opinion. And that was originally going to be a very quick overview of every playable character, except you Wonky because I hate you, and their strengths and weaknesses. This project got a little bit out of hand, but I hope you all enjoyed it irregardless. I didn't want to do a full guide on every survivor in one video, since that video would be a couple hours long. If you do want actual survivor guides, then do let me know down below. I'll try my best if so many people ask for it. I hope I helped you thin down your choices when it comes to picking your main. Let me know who your main is or will be down below in the comments, and what you think their strengths and weaknesses may be. For now, I'm heading off. Thanks for watching everybody. Bye bye.